Okay, so perfect. Thanks to David for inviting me for this keynote, and thanks to all of you for being here today. So today I'm going to share the experience I gained from working with many fintechs and financial institutions worldwide. So let me start why I'm here today. So as I just said, in the last 10 years, I worked with many fintechs and financial institutions worldwide. Many of these collaborations were successful, while a few failed. So what I've learned is that those collaborations can be mutually beneficial because of the complementarities between academia and industry, but they're also risky because of the differences in goals, in timelines, and the way we approach problems. So what I will do today, I will try to share the secrets of those successful collaborations, trying to cover each phase, going from matching with an industry partners, the first introductory calls, the design of a research plan, and most importantly, on how to execute the plan. So the main reason why I've been working with so many fintechs and financial institutions is because of the type of research I do. So first strand of my research focuses on households and fintech. So what I try to do, I try to understand and improve how consumers make decisions. And I'm talking about consumption, saving, and investment decisions. So why fintech then? Well, data from fintech companies can help us to understand consumers' behavior. And also, thanks to the high penetration of technology, it can be used to deploy behavioral intervention, which is crucial if you want to try to improve those decisions. So in my research, I typically start from observational data. So those are data that are shared from the fintechs, and this is crucial to understand what consumers do. And then depending on the project, we run survey on the app population to understand why users make certain decisions, because we ask them directly. And then again, depending on the project, we run randomized control trial, A/B testing, and this is crucial to understand what has a causal effect on behavior, which is again crucial if you want to improve those decisions. So one of the first companies we work with is a large US retail brokerage. Think of it as like Robinhood, Vanguard, TD Ameritrade. So they shared with us the data on the URL within the brokerage website that a subset of their customers browsed, together with their investment decisions. And so what we do, we use this data to measure attention and to measure the relation between attention and performance, hence the title of the paper, Does It Pay to Pay Attention? Now, because I spent a few years in Australia at the beginning of my career, I also engaged with many Australian fintech companies, and so we worked with REA, which is the largest real estate listing website. And so what we did, so they shared with us data on the listings on the platform, a subset of their customers browsed, together with information about their postcode of residence. And so we use these data to look at how search behavior affects local price growth. Now, because I'm Italian, I also work with many Italian fintech companies. One of these is Gimme5. So this is a company, this is a fintech that helps customers to save more. And so they share with us data on the saving goals that users create on the app. And so we use this data to check, to study whether goal setting helps in saving. Hence the title of the paper, Goal Setting and Saving in the Fintech Era. We also work with an Italian neobank that offers tools to the customers to manage and monitor emissions. This is the paper I will be presenting on Wednesday. And we use this data to study what can we do to help consumers to be more sustainable. And then finally, another Australian prop tech company that records auction bids at real estate auctions, which we use to understand bidding behavior. Now, a second strand of my research focuses instead on professional investors, and in particular hedge funds and short sellers. And so the focus of my research here is more how to use alternative data, so non-traditional data sources, to predict returns, to generate alpha. So in this space, we work with the CLS Group, which is the largest FX settlement institution in the world. So they shared with us high-frequency data on FX volume, which we use to understand whether it's useful to predict the cross-section of exchange rates. And we work with IHS Markit, which is a provider of alternative data. They share with us a unique data on the profit and losses of short sellers, which we use, again, to understand whether it contains predictive information on future returns and on market efficiency. So, as I said, during these collaborations, I learned that industry-academia collaboration can be beneficial, but they are also risky. And so what I'm doing now, I'll try to share the benefits and risk, both from the point of view of academics and the point of view of an industry partner. So why an academic should work with an industry partner? So first of all, because working with a fintech company can give you access to novel data. So we all know how competitive now is becoming to publish in top journal. And so getting new data can offer you, obviously, a competitive advantage. Also because we know, this is an exhibit from The Economist, how the landscape of publication has changed over the past 20 years, and now it's becoming harder and harder to publish purely theoretical papers, and how the focus now is moved towards empirical papers, novel data, causal methods. Also, working with a fintech company, with an industry partner, can give you the opportunity to have a real-world impact, because oftentimes the research, right, is used to change the app design, to change the way services are provided. And so this means that you can have an impact on the life of users of those apps. Now, and sorry if I'm being a little bit cynic here, but working with an industry partner can also help you to tick the industry engagement box. So in my experience, in many countries, governments are pushing academics to engage more with the private sector. And for example, in Australia, this was also part of like the annual evaluation. So working with an industry partner can help you as an academic to tick this box. And also those safe governments that are pushing us to work with the industry are also cutting our research funds. And so this could help you to get extra funding for your research. So what about the industry partners? Why a fintech should work with an academic? So in my experience, there are three main benefits. So first of all, insights from these research collaborations can help to better understand your customers' behavior. Second, the research can be used for marketing purposes, and I will show a few examples in a few slides. And also, research papers can help to increase the commercial viability of selling data, especially if, as a fintech, your focus is to sell data. Now, why the insights from academics are different from what you can get from like your data scientist team or consultants, right? So first of all, as academics, we are really heavily trained on causal identification. So we don't just go after correlations. We really want causal effects. We really want to understand the mechanism. Also, we are supposed to have higher credibility, right? Because we are outside of the company, so we have no financial conflict. And finally, because of the costs, no? Because when there are those research collaborations, right, there is no money involved exactly to avoid this financial conflict. If instead it becomes a consultancy, then the cost is much lower than what like consultancy company typically charge. What are the risks now involved in these collaborations? So working with a fintech app is not like working with traditional data providers, right? So why? First of all, because the data doesn't come with a manual, right? You need to spend a lot of time understanding the data, cleaning the data. And also there are typically legal frictions in accessing the data. No, it's not like you pay and then, right, you download the data the day after. So which means that after all these efforts, it might be the case that you find no results, or you find that maybe the data is not as useful as you were thinking. And also, it might happen that the projects developed very slowly, or it's suddenly killed. Why this is the case? This is the case because data scientists run multiple projects at the same time. Am I sorry for you academics, but you are not their priority oftentimes. There is also high turnover in the industry, which means that your contact at the fintech company might suddenly leave. And also the business world, right, moves very fast, so which means that then the priority of your project might just be downgraded. So these are the main risks I faced when I work with the industry partner. What are the risks, right, instead for the fintech? So here the first risk is that the research doesn't lead to the results the fintech was wishing for. Also here there are risks involved in sharing customers' data, in sharing proprietary data. And also here there are the risks that the project proceeds slowly, and again, because also we as academics, we have multiple papers we work on, and sometimes we have teaching duties. So these are the risks, in my experience, industry partners typically faced. So what I will do now, I will try to share what are the secrets of these successful collaborations. So what are the factors that lead to success and factors that lead to failure? So about 20 years ago, John Gray, an American psychologist, wrote this book, Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus. And this book was meant to help men and women to understand each other, understand the differences, understand their complementarities. And I think this is the same for academics and practitioners. They are definitely different, but they are benefit from each other because of their complementarities. And this typically happens if they are able to understand each other, which is hard because most of our academics have never worked in the industry, and most of the industry people have never worked as academics. So to me, the most important thing to have a successful collaboration is to understand that both practitioners and academics are in very competitive environment, and they have evolved, right, by following the rules that govern those environments. So which means that academics and practitioners have different objective functions, which often leads to a different way to solve problems, and thus to a different, sometimes timelines, a different horizon at which those problems are solved. And I'm sorry if I'm probably simplifying a little bit here, but what is the objective function of an industry partner? Typically is to make money, to beat the competition. And so the focus is on developing products that work and developing products that are at the forefront of the latest technology, which nowadays means AI. What is the focus of an academic instead is to publish in top journals. And we know that this is very competitive in the sense that publishing top journals nowadays, the acceptance rate is 5% or even less. And so the focus is on producing results that are robust, that are based on a very rigorous methodology. And so having something that just works is not enough. No? So there is this difference in objective function, which then leads to a difference in the approach, right? In the way problems are solved. So in my experience, and again, I'm sorry if I'm simplifying a little bit here, but in industry, the approach is a little bit more agnostic and risk-taking in a very positive way. So in a sense that when typically there is a problem, right, there are meetings to decide possible solutions based on common sense, and then A/B testing, randomized controlled trials are run to decide then what is the best way to solve the problems. Now, as academics, I think before working on a problem, there is a lot more thinking ex ante. And again, I'm not saying this necessarily in a positive way, because oftentimes this leads to less risk-taking. And again, why this is the case? Because for us, having results, having something that works is not enough. We need to know why it works. We need to know what is the economic mechanism. Oftentimes, we also need to have a model that explains our results. Which oftentimes also leads to very long internet appendixes to satisfy the referee. And so this leads to a final difference in the horizon. And the best way I have to describe this comes from the chief AI scientist at Meta. Right? So research is something that typically takes years. Now, publishing in a top-tier finance journal nowadays takes minimum 3 to 5 years, starting from the idea generation to the final acceptance, while companies are obviously focused on things like product development, which instead takes a few months, right? Typically 3 to 6 months. So given all these differences, what is, I think, the very first secret of a successful collaboration? To make sure it's mutually beneficial for the academics and for the industry partner. So, as I said, for an academic, this means to have the possibility of publishing a paper in a top-tier journal. Should I go on? I mean, I know this almost by heart, but while for an industry partner, yes, so for an industry partner, as I said, what are typically the benefits, right? Research can lead to a better understanding of the customers. Research can be used for marketing purposes because it comes from outside of the company, and it can increase the commercial availability of selling data. This is an example of how research can help a company to improve, right, the app, to improve services, and how it can be used for marketing purposes. So this comes from the collaboration with Gimme5. Now we wrote this paper, Goal Setting and Saving in the FinTech Era. And so they use our paper to show that their business was actually helping their customers. So this is a list of all the parts of the news outlet that covered our paper. So this is the Wall Street Journal Italy, Milano Finanza, and Sole 24 Ore. So this is an example of how research can be used by an industry partner for marketing purposes and to lead to improvements on the app. So, as I said, first secret, make sure this research is mutually beneficial. It's also important to have a clear match between the skills of the research team and what the company does. No? So which means as an academic, you shouldn't jump of any sort of collaboration, but you should make sure that there is such a match. If not, bring some other academic that has the research skills that complement yours. It's crucial to have a contact in the organization, someone in the organization who is responsive, so responds to your email, to your requests, is high enough, so in order to be able to make decisions, for example, to send you the data. And also someone who is excited about the project or someone who has something to gain from the project. Again, it's crucial to have incentives aligned. Another secret is to make sure that we have a plan before we start and we are clear about what are the objectives, so what the company is trying to achieve, and again, what we are trying to achieve. The best scenario is when there is a perfect overlap between what is interesting from an academic point of view and what is interesting from an industry point of view. Even when this is not the case, it's still possible to have a research collaboration as long as there is some flexibility, which I will be discussing in a few minutes. And also, finally, it's also important to have meetings. So the human touch in this collaboration is crucial. So this depends, obviously, the optimal frequency depends on the stage of the project, depends on how busy is the industry partner. But as an academic, you shouldn't just get the data and then disappear. So it's important to have regular meetings to discuss the results. At the beginning of this presentation, I talk about the successful collaborations, but obviously, success is always like the tip of the iceberg, and there is much more, right, that people don't see, and part of what people don't see is failure. So I've learned a lot also from failed collaborations, which are collaborations that actually never started in a way. So when I was in Australia, for example, I tried to engage with the largest Australian banks, but it was almost impossible, simply because there was so much bureaucracy, which means lawyers. So it was impossible to get access to the data, which in a way is totally understandable because those banks have trillions of assets under management, millions of customers, and no research is worth that risk. And also what I found is that they have such large data scientist team, and it was impossible to find the right person to talk to. And also the data was totally scattered around those banks. We also tried to work with another US retail brokerage. And why this collaboration never started is because they just wanted us to find the results that were good for them. So they were interested in the truth. They just wanted us to find what they wanted. And so this collaboration never really started. Sometimes I've engaged with very small fintech. And the problem there is that they were just too small. So they didn't have enough users. And they didn't have even a data team. So there was nobody who could help us in getting access to the data. So here there is a trade-off, right? Typically small fintechs are very eager to work with you, but sometimes the data is not there in a way. And the last case was a very interesting case. So this is a fintech that help customers design algorithms for trading. So I had a call with the CEO, and his prior was that these guys are just losing money from using those algorithms because of overfitting and the way they design those algorithms. And he was not interested in understanding why this was the case and how to improve the platform. And so that's where I learned that making profits, it's different sometimes from benefiting customers. So in the last 5 minutes, I want to share some very practical tips on the different stages through which those collaborations typically develop, starting from matching with an industry partner. In my experience, when you try to match with an industry partner, there is a little bit of a barrier, there is a little bit of a mistrust barrier. And again, this is natural because of the risks involved in sharing data, and especially in sharing data with someone who is outside of the organization, and someone they cannot control. So it helps if you know someone directly, and it also helps if you have a successful track record of past collaborations, which you can use, right, to overcome this barrier. So what's, in my experience, the best way to match with an industry partner is if you know the CEO. Okay, so if you know the CEO, I can guarantee you that the data teams will be very happy to help you. So this is, for example, how the collaboration with Gimme5 started, because I knew the CEO. And then, right, he put me in contact with the data analytics team, and then things developed. But sometimes it's just enough that you know someone inside. No, it's because it's typically it's very hard to know the CEO. And see, this was the case with this Italian neobank that we worked with for the paper I will present on Wednesday. It started almost by chance. I was at the beach in my hometown in Italy with a friend of mine, and I asked about his brother. He told me he was working in a fintech in Milan. I went online, I checked what the fintech was doing. I thought it was interesting. And so I asked this friend of mine to put me in contact with his brother. And then he invited me for a brown bag at this neobank. And that's how things started. The second best way is to attend conferences like this. And I think we need to give a round of applause again to David, because this is just a great opportunity to engage with fintechs, right? Because in my experience, if you send an email, even after an informal chat, no, you get a much higher response rate compared to sending an email to someone we have never talked to in person. Third channel, which rarely works, is to send invitations through email, through LinkedIn, or sending emails. And why this is hard? Because if you send an email to the CEO, chances are you will not get any response. And if you send an email to someone who is like lower ranked in the organization, you might get a response, but then, right, it's going to be hard to have this moved up. So after you match with an industry partner, typically there are some introductory calls. And in my experience, it's very crucial that these things are discussed. So first of all, what are the research questions? So what are the research questions and the possible outcomes, especially the unwanted outcomes? Now, the best scenario is when there is a perfect overlap between what is interesting from an academic perspective and what is interesting from an industry perspective. But things can still work out if there is a partial overlap, but this means that some of the analysis has to be done just for the fintech, for the industry partner, and part of the analysis are done for the paper. If there is no overlap, no, then it means that it's not a research collaboration anymore and becomes a consultancy. As I said here, it's very important to also discuss the unwanted results, because this is when the company, or at least my experience, I give the company the right to stay anonymous. No? So think about, again, the paper on does it pay to pay attention. When we started, we tell the company there are 3 possible scenarios: a positive relation between attention and performance, which is good for you and good in terms of our publication for us. No relation, which is we don't have a publication out of it, but you can still learn something. And this is a negative scenario where there's a negative relation, which means we might still get a publication, but then this might be a negative result for you. So if you are not ready to face all these possible scenarios, now you can decide to stay anonymous. It turned out that we found a positive relation, but then, right, the company is not named in the paper. This is also when you discuss the type of data the company can share, which is crucial to define the methodology, right? Because one thing is to agree on the research questions. One thing then is to define the methodology. To do that, you really need to know the data fields. You really need to know which kind of data the company can share. And as I said, it's crucial that in these calls you discuss what the company is trying to achieve. Because the most important thing in my experience is that those collaborations are mutually beneficial. After these calls, what I typically do, I write a short document, a sort of memorandum of understanding, where I synthesize what we discussed, right? So I wrote the research hypothesis, I write the methodology, I write all the possible results, the data needed for the analysis, and what are the timeline, right, by which we wish to achieve those. The very last minute, just a few tips on the most important part, which is how to execute the research plan, right? Because you have now matched with an industry partner, you have defined the research questions, but now it's time to execute it. Now, in my experience, the first months are the most important one, because it's when you realize whether those ingredients of a successful collaboration are there. For example, that's when you realize whether there is someone in the organization who is responsive, someone who has incentives and is kind of willing to work with you. Also, a suggestion, try to finish as soon as possible. As I said, because industry works at a much higher speed compared to academics. And also remember that the risks involved for academics. Priorities might change. The person in the organization might leave. So you want to make sure you do things as fast as possible, which also means, given the difference in timelines, that you first try to focus on satisfying what are the objectives of the company. No? So you first try to deliver what the company is looking for so that you have enough years to work for the publication, right? Because remember, product development typically takes months, while research papers take years. So I just want to conclude. What are my main points? The collaborations between academia and industry can be mutually beneficial because of those complementarities. The main benefits for the academics is typically to get novel data that can give advantage in the publication game. For industry partners, you can get better understanding of customers, increase the commercial viability of selling data, or research that can be used for marketing purposes. Unfortunately, those collaborations are also risky due to the differences in between industry, and I get this as a signal that I have to stop. But yeah, so the main tip in terms of executing this plan, try to agree on a timeline and execute it fast, because unfortunately in the industry things move very fast. And the most important secret, make sure that those collaborations are mutually beneficial, and so you define what are the objectives that the industry partner is looking for. So, and I'm looking forward to the panel, and I'm looking forward to engage with all of you, academics and practitioners. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Antonio. So we have some questions. I'll just invite Dan, John, Sebastian, and Tibor to join us on stage. And while that's happening, maybe, Antonio, you want to take these two questions?
Yes. Yes, exactly. So in terms of the optimal size, yes, there is a little bit of a trade-off there, because when I engaged with two small fintechs, they are very happy, right, to work with you, but sometimes they don't have enough customers. While as you move to larger organizations, then you face increasing layers of bureaucracy, which makes very hard to get access to the data. So in my experience, like mid-size companies are the best, because it's easy to get data from them, and also you have enough data to do research. Yes, I mean, advisory board seats. So as long as you know someone in the organization, another channel I've been trying to use more recently is alumni. No, so universities have alumni network. Many of them work in industry, and many of them are also happy to engage with academics and are happy to give back to the university. So what I'm trying to exploit a little bit more, also because I ran out of CEOs like in my network, is to contact our alumni.